Hey guys! Tonight we're trading in our sweatpants and cell phones for corsets, hat pins, and a staggering amount of etiquette rules. Yes, we're tumbling headfirst into the wonderfully absurd world of American women's etiquette in the 1900s, a time when accidentally showing your ankle could cause a scandal and forgetting your gloves was basically public nudity. This was an era when being proper took more effort than assembling IKEA furniture, and the list of what not to do was longer than your cousin's rant on Facebook. Before we proceed, if you find yourself snorting, smirking, or just happily drifting off to the sound of vintage ridiculousness, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and maybe comment with your favorite outdated rule. Only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, of course. Otherwise, keep your decorum and your finger off that button. Dim the lights, crank up your fan for that white noise, old hotel ambience, and sink into whatever position feels least likely to cause a neck cramp. Get comfy, because we're about to ask the big questions you never thought you needed to know. Let's get curious for a second. Have you ever wondered how many spoons is too many at a dinner table? And will the etiquette police arrest you if you use the wrong one? What happens if you sneeze in public without a lacy handkerchief? If your hat falls off in the street, do you collect it, faint, or write a letter of apology to the mayor? Why did calling on someone require more planning than a modern wedding? Would your social standing survive an unchaperoned conversation with a man? And if not, is there a support group for etiquette offenders? Congratulations, you've just woken up at 1905. You're an American woman, your hair is up, your spine is straight, and your day is about to become a full-contact sport with politeness. It's 6 a.m., and your day starts not with a yawn, but with a checklist. Before you even think about setting foot outside your boudoir, there are protocols to follow. Hairpins must be secured, slippers must be dainty, and absolutely nobody should catch you without a robe. Good luck to anyone who tries to brush their teeth with the window open. There's a rule about that too. You are a woman of 1905, and your alarm clock isn't a gentle smartphone chime, but the relentless clatter of a servant's tray, or perhaps the earnest sunlight filtering through lace curtains. There's no such thing as hitting snooze, unless you count politely pretending you're still asleep until the household has sufficiently aired itself of scandalous sounds, like someone actually living in it. The first etiquette hurdle: rising from bed with all the dignity of a queen. No stretching, groaning, or, God forbid, scratching. Your nightgown must be pristine, and you must slip into your robe the very second your toes hit the floor. Hesitate, and you risk exposure. There are stories, whispered naturally, of a neighbor's daughter who was spotted crossing her own room without a robe, causing a chain reaction of pearl clutching so severe that the wallpaper nearly peeled itself in protest. Once you've survived the perilous robe gauntlet, you move to hair. In this era, your hair isn't just a bedhead. It's a political statement. If your locks are loose, you're one step away from being mistaken for a tragic heroine, or, worse, someone with continental ideas. So you reach for your hairbrush, preferably ivory-handled, and begin the first of 100 daily strokes. You are not simply brushing your hair, you are signaling to the world, or at least your mother, that you are a respectable person, even before breakfast. Toothbrushing, if you dare, must be performed behind closed doors. Don't even think about humming or, heaven help you, gargling. The only acceptable bathroom noise is the sound of decorum being restored. Even your toothbrush is an etiquette accessory. Bone-handled, never gaudy. Tooth powder is discreetly kept out of sight, lest a guest confuse you with the sort of person who openly fights plaque. As you prepare to face the world, the mirror is less for vanity and more for compliance. Are all buttons buttoned? Is your dressing gown properly cinched? If your petticoat shows beneath your robe, you're essentially announcing your availability for a duel at dawn. There's a chart for how much your wrist can be exposed in the morning. You follow it with the devotion of someone defusing a very polite bomb. Meanwhile, breakfast calls. But you can't go down yet. There's a rule for that too. You must wait for the official family rising. Only after the appointed time may you float down the stairs. Never thump, never trip. If you meet anyone before you're fully composed, you're required to offer a soft greeting, never morning. Just a gentle good morning. As if you're announcing the weather for the day and hoping no one will remember if you ever mispronounced it. Of course, the true terror lies in the unexpected visitor. There is always a chance, however slim, that someone may call before noon. If you are caught in disarray, you must either disappear behind the nearest potted plant or invent a sudden, urgent desire to inspect the linen closet. Etiquette textbooks recommend maintaining a state of constant, gentle readiness, which is exhausting but presumably safer than being immortalized as that woman who answered the door in slippers. By 7 a.m., you are less a person and more an exhibit in the Museum of Proper Conduct. You have survived the opening ceremonies, robe, hair, slippers, toothbrush, and all. The reward? The chance to do it all again tomorrow. Hoping against hope that your hairpins hold. Your robe doesn't betray you, and no one ever sees you brushing your teeth by the window. Because in the 1900s, the most important thing to wear each morning isn't your corset or your best lace. It's your unbroken commitment to the daily performance of etiquette, and if that doesn't wake you up, nothing will. Welcome to the Olympics of getting dressed, circa 1905. Petticoats, corsets, chemises, stockings, and at least 4 more layers before you even reach acceptable. Each one has its own rules. Corsets laced but not scandalously tight. Stockings pulled just so. And heaven help you if your slip shows. Getting ready is less about comfort, more about survival, and the real risk is social shame, not hypoxia. It starts with the chemise, a whisper of cotton or linen, soft enough to pretend at luxury, but really just the first line of defense between your skin and the rest of civilization. It's a simple garment, but even the chemise is subject to inspection. Too loose, and you're accused of slovenliness. Too tight, and you risk a reputation as someone who might have independent thoughts. Next comes the corset. The corset, icon of elegance, enemy of lungs. You must wrangle yourself into its stiff embrace, often requiring assistance and a steadying prayer. The etiquette books declare it must be firmly fitted for posture, not immodestly tight. Of course, if you can breathe easily, you're not doing it right. Your mother checks the laces with the precision of an army drill sergeant, ensuring everything is both upright and properly constrained. Sneeze at the wrong time, and you might set off a domino effect of stays, hooks, and maternal disappointment. Once secured, it's time for draws. Yes, the sort that require navigating an obstacle course of buttons, ties, and modesty. There are rules here too. Ladies tie theirs discreetly, never mentioning undergarments by name. The word underwear is whispered like it's a secret government code. Now for the stockings, rolled up with care and secured with garters. These are not the stretchy, forgiving stockings of today. They're itchy, they slide down, and if your garters fail, you might as well move to a new town. If someone sees your knee, even the vague suggestion of it, it's basically an episode of historical reality TV, complete with family outrage and a stern letter from your aunt in Baltimore. Then come the petticoats, and this is where things get competitive. At least 2 for structure, maybe 3 for flair, and a 4th for insurance. Each layer adds volume and prestige, creating the illusion of a swan, while you feel more like a nervous duck. Petticoats must be fluffed, straightened, and never allowed to peek out below your skirt. The correct length is debated in every sewing circle. Too long is dowdy, too short is scandal. Either way, you're walking a tightrope. Finally, the slip, your last line of defense against wardrobe catastrophe. A slip prevents your dress from clinging inappropriately, ensures your silhouette is mysterious but never distracting, and provides just enough rustle to remind everyone you are, indeed, present. At this point, you're about as insulated as a winter potato and twice as starchy. Outerwear is where the real pageantry begins. You slip on a blouse, high-collared, sleeves to the wrist, buttons up to your sanity limit. A tailored skirt follows, carefully smoothed to avoid the dreaded rumple. If you have a jacket, it must match. If not, a shawl will do, provided it's arranged so artfully that no one suspects it's hiding a crooked seam. Every button is a checkpoint, every hook an invitation for anxiety. By the end of the process, you're swaddled in more fabric than a small circus tent. But don't relax yet. Now comes the final inspection. Gloves, shoes, and that all. Important hat, perched just so. Is your collar straight? Are your cuffs aligned? Did you forget the brooch? The stakes are nothing less than total social annihilation. Or at least, a raised eyebrow from Mrs. Farnsworth next door. All told, dressing in 1905 is less a personal choice and more an obstacle course designed by people who feared ankles. Yet, every layer is proof of resilience, dexterity, and the daily triumph of showing up in the world, wrapped in 3 pounds of starch and silent expectation. If you survive the great undergarment expedition, you've already won your first gold medal of the day. The prize? The privilege of doing it all again tomorrow, and the knowledge that at least your knees will never be the cause of public unrest. Breakfast isn't just about food. It's a competitive sport in cutlery placement and napkin origami. There's an approved way to butter toast, sip coffee, and, most importantly, never, ever talk about bodily functions. If you're feeling rebellious, try using the grapefruit spoon on your porridge and see what happens. You descend to the dining room in your crispest morning attire, your posture so upright it's practically architectural. The air smells faintly of toast and trepidation. A proper breakfast table, circa 1905, is a dazzling landscape of white linen, shining silverware, and porcelain that you must pretend not to notice is chipped. There are more forks than you have fingers, and each one has a single, sacred purpose. Pick up the wrong fork and you risk social ruin. Pick up the wrong topic and you risk being quietly disinherited. Napkins aren't just squares of cloth. They're a test of character. Yours must be placed neatly in your lap, never tucked into your collar unless you are under the age of 3 or have given up on all hope of ever being invited out again. The fold? There's a chart for that. And the wrong crease could be interpreted as a secret cry for help. If you drop your napkin, simply pretend you meant to, gracefully ask for another, and never, ever crawl under the table. That is the realm of lost causes and small dogs. Now for the bread and butter, which, according to the etiquette gospel, must be executed with the precision of a neurosurgeon. Under no circumstances may you butter the entire slice at once. This is anarchy. Instead, you tear off a modest piece, butter it with the proper knife, never your personal one, and nibble with an air of subdued triumph. Attempting to balance toast, coffee, and polite conversation is like juggling hedgehogs. Possible, but not advised. Speaking of coffee, there's a ceremony to it. Coffee is poured by the hostess, always, unless a butler is present, in which case he becomes the arbiter of caffeine and good cheer. If you take sugar, do so with a dainty spoon and never, ever double dip. Stirring too enthusiastically is seen as a plea for attention. The sound of clinking china is tolerable. The sound of swirling, never. Milk in first or last. That debate has ended friendships and caused more family feuds than a badly divided estate. As for the actual meal, it is a parade of polite silence, interrupted by careful remarks about the weather or the excellence of the marmalade. You may discuss last night's concert or today's social calendar, but not the fact that someone at the table is desperately fighting off a sneeze. If you must cough, do so discreetly and into a handkerchief, then immediately apologize as if you've set fire to the drapes. Laughter should be muted, conversation civilized, and elbows, don't even think about them. Every item has its time and place. The egg spoon, the fruit knife, the mysterious implement you suspect is for intimidating left-handed guests. Each will be used, and you are expected to know when. If you're confused, watch the eldest woman at the table. She has survived more etiquette disasters than anyone and will guide you with the subtlety of a semaphore signal. But beware the grapefruit spoon. It's a spiky, sinister little thing that, if used incorrectly, can send citrus shrapnel flying. This is why some families simply banned fruit altogether and switched to porridge, less drama, more fiber. By the end of breakfast, you are fortified not just by food but by the knowledge that you have, once again, survived a daily trial that would break most mortals. The coffee may be weak, but your will is strong. You rise, dab your lips with your napkin, and leave the table exactly as you found it, a battlefield of order, discipline, and the unspoken agreement that everyone will pretend the grapefruit incident never happened. Congratulations, you've conquered the breakfast table. Only 17 more meals to go today, and every single one has rules. Time for a walk? Not so fast. The morning promenade is really an obstacle course of etiquette. Gloves on, hat angled perfectly, steps taken at the approved ladylike speed. Stumble on a pebble and you risk a lifetime of whispered gossip. Remember, only criminals and anarchists slouch. As you reach for your gloves, soft kid leather of course, and preferably the correct shade for the time of day, you can practically feel your ancestors hovering in judgment. Pulling them on is not just about warmth, it's the universal symbol of, I am prepared to be seen, but not touched by society. Your hat comes next. It's not simply a sun shield, it's a wearable mood ring of social class. It should be perched neither too high nor too low, set at an angle that says fashionable but not frivolous. The wrong hat at the wrong angle? You might as well announce to the block that you have opinions about women voting. And now, your posture. This is no idle detail. You must walk with your shoulders back, chin gently lifted, back so straight you could balance a teacup on it. In fact, there are entire pamphlets dedicated to the art of carrying books on your head for practice. You, however, will settle for the next best thing, holding in your anxiety so tightly it makes your spine perfect by default. Steps must be short and measured, the exact opposite of a power walk, or, heaven forbid, a jog. Ladies move at a pace somewhere between fainting couch in sight and, oh dear, is that a neighbor's curtain twitching? Each block is a stage, and you are, unfortunately, always on it. The street is lined with hawthorn hedges and the watching eyes of Mrs. Emerson from number 22, whose favorite hobby is spotting a crooked hem from 200 yards. The rules? Don't look rushed, don't look bored. Don't look like you're enjoying yourself too much. Smiling at strangers is for loose women and small dogs. Eye contact is strictly rationed. Too little, you're cold. Too much, you're plotting something. Heels must make only the faintest sound, just enough to be noticed by other respectable women, not so much as to call attention from any nearby men. You are a silent ballet of respectability and restraint. If you must cross the street, check for witnesses before lifting your skirt even an inch. Flashing an ankle is the nuclear option of 1905 etiquette, reserved only for emergencies or if you secretly want to be the main character in a cautionary tale. Of course, there's always the risk of the unexpected encounter. Should you see a gentleman, you must acknowledge him with a nod, never a wave, unless you are prepared to be written up in someone's memoir. If he tips his hat, you respond with a modest smile. Anything broader, and you'll have an engagement announcement by lunchtime. Crossing paths with another lady requires a careful assessment. Are you acquaintances? Or just co-survivors in the etiquette trenches? If in doubt, default to the world's gentlest good morning, ideally pronounced so quietly only the birds hear it. But the real danger lurks in the terrain itself. A loose stone, an uneven paving slab, a runaway dog, all hazards that threaten your composure. Should you trip? There's a protocol. Recover instantly. Pretend it didn't happen. And pray no one saw. If someone did, rumor will beat you home, where it will blossom into a story about how poor Miss So-and-so simply tumbled onto the boulevard. Ankles everywhere. You'll spend the next week walking twice as straight, hoping the incident will be replaced by a new scandal, like someone being seen without their parasol. As you return home, you've not just strolled, you've survived a gauntlet. Every gesture, every step, every carefully measured glance is another brick in your fortress of reputation. The morning promenade isn't just a way to greet the day. It's a living, breathing performance. Congratulations, you walked, you posed, you didn't start a revolution with your posture, and tomorrow, you'll do it all over again. Encounter another human? Better know the code. Curtsy, not too deep, smile, but not too wide. No waving, what are you, a dock worker? Even the right good morning is loaded with hidden rules that could doom your reputation before noon. You spot your neighbor approaching down the sidewalk, Mrs. Abernathy, the unofficial minister of neighborhood decorum, and the only person whose gaze can instantly wrinkle linen. The adrenaline kicks in. This is not just a chance meeting, it's a live-action etiquette pop quiz, and you are utterly unprepared. Your heart races. Do you nod first? Should you slow your step? And for the love of all that is decent, what should you do with your hands? Protocol is clear. Hands at your sides or lightly clasped, not in pockets, which are for men, children, and social outcasts. A greeting is required, but not enthusiastic. Good morning, Mrs. Abernathy, delivered with the gravity of a minor courtier, is ideal. Mourning by itself is dangerously casual, while anything like howdy will get you blacklisted from the next church bake sale. The smile is a minefield all its own. The right amount says, I am pleased to see you, but not so pleased that it suggests madness or political aspirations. Too much teeth, and you're overfamiliar. Too little, and you're icy. Some women practice in front of the mirror, attempting the perfect, pleasant, but not desperate look. You, naturally, settle on your signature, awkward and hopeful. The curtsy is optional, but should be considered if the neighbor is older, married, or rumored to have connections at the Ladies' Philanthropic Society. Too deep, and it's an insult, suggesting civility or sarcasm. Too shallow, and you appear lazy or, worse, French. The angle of your head, the dip of your knees, the moment you rise. Each is silently graded and reported at the afternoon sewing circle. Should conversation arise, keep it light. Topics may include the weather, the roses, the soundness of the local milkman, or, in extreme circumstances, the color of the new postbox. Never stray into the forbidden territory of politics, money, illness, or your neighbor's suspicious new hat. Asking questions is encouraged, but only the kind that can be answered with, "Fine, thank you." If you accidentally inquire about anything real, like feelings, you'll need to send a handwritten apology before dusk. If there is a gentleman present, say Mr. Abernathy, trailing 10 respectful paces behind, there is a new set of rules. Eye contact is strictly limited to 2 seconds, or 3 if you are related by marriage. A nod is appropriate, provided it is neither flirtatious nor dismissive. Never, ever initiate a handshake. You are not closing a deal at the stock exchange. Children must be acknowledged as well, but not too enthusiastically. Compliment their posture, their hair ribbons, or their ability to remain silent in public. Never ask their age, lest you discover you're addressing a small adult, or worse, a teenager trying out irony. Of course, mistakes happen. Maybe you wave by reflex, or your curtsy is more of a sideways lurch. Maybe you stutter, or, horror of horrors, you drop your glove in the middle of the exchange. If so, recovery is key. Smile sheepishly, mumble something about the weather, and promise yourself you'll move to a new city at the earliest opportunity. Because in 1905, the ritual of greeting your neighbors is less about connection and more about survival. Every encounter is a social performance, delicate, deadly, and unending. One misstep, and your faux pas will ripple through town faster than you can say good day. But if you make it home with your dignity, mostly, intact, consider yourself a master of the art, at least until you run into Mrs. Abernathy again tomorrow. Everywhere you go, someone's watching. Not for your safety. Oh no. It's to ensure your moral fiber doesn't unravel like a cheap hem. Unchaperoned walks with a gentleman? Scandal. Sitting on the same park bench? Straight to etiquette prison? Do not pass go. You might think your morning stroll or afternoon errand would be a simple matter of going from point A to point B. Instead, you find yourself at the mercy of the chaperone, the ever-vigilant guardian of your reputation, dignity, and, most importantly, your marriage prospects. She can be a mother, an aunt, a slightly disapproving older cousin, or, if you're truly unlucky, a professional companion, paid specifically to keep you from disgrace, daylight, and fun. The chaperone's purpose is not to protect you from wolves. No, it's to protect society from you, lest your unsupervised presence ignite a firestorm of flirtation and, heaven forbid, autonomous decision-making. The logic is simple. If you are left alone, disaster will occur. 2 minutes without a chaperone, and you might spontaneously elope with the local blacksmith, or, worse, develop opinions about bicycles. The etiquette of chaperonage is as complex as chess and twice as petty. You must walk at her side, never ahead, never lagging behind, always at the sanctioned respectable daughter distance. Her job is to glide with you, eavesdropping on every conversation, silently judging every word. Should you meet a gentleman acquaintance, your chaperone materializes between you, a living wall of lavender and reproach, nodding coolly and timing your every syllable. If you're invited to tea or a picnic, rest assured, your chaperone will be there, balancing her cup and her glower with equal skill. When gentlemen call, she sits nearby with her embroidery, not listening but very much listening. Should you laugh a little too loudly, or linger too long by the window, her brow furrows, the universal sign, careful, or I'll start writing letters to your mother. Occasionally, a chaperone is more subtle. She might go to the other room but stand in the doorway. She will tend the roses outside the parlor, but appear instantly at the first sound of masculine laughter. She has the unique ability to blend into wallpaper until the precise moment you look slightly happy. Then she appears, armed with questions about propriety and a handy anecdote about cousin Millicent's fall from grace. Unchaperoned time is rare and precious. If you're ever caught walking alone, expect a parade of consequences. a gentle but relentless stream of neighborhood concern, a summons from your father, and, most fatefully, a sudden drop in invitations. The unchaperoned girl becomes a legend, her story whispered as both warning and entertainment at every sewing circle and church picnic. Even the milkman knows. And it isn't just about being seen with men. Chaperones monitor your time with other young women, lest idle conversation drift toward the dangerous shoals of political agitation or, gasp, an interest in suffrage. Any plan to just run down to the post office becomes a strategic campaign, requiring paperwork, negotiation, and a guarantee that you'll be accompanied by someone with absolutely no sense of adventure. If you complain, you're accused of rebellion. If you accept it, you're praised for docility. Meanwhile, your male counterparts roam the world chaperone-free, their reputations as stable as ever, even if they fall in a mud puddle or declare war on a lamppost. But beneath the stifling oversight, a quiet rebellion grows. You learn to pass secret notes under the teacup, to arrange accidental meetings in full view, knowing your chaperone can't report what she didn't quite see. Your generation develops a sixth sense for opportunity, for a moment's privacy, for the silent wink behind the chaperone's back. Because in 1905, the chaperone isn't just a person, she's the embodiment of a whole social order. Your days are never truly private, but your mind, at least, remains yours. And as you nod politely at your chaperone's third warning of the day, you silently vow, one day, you'll stroll through the park alone. And when you do, you'll wave at every bench you please. Visiting friends isn't just dropping by. It's a process involving paper, punctuality, and passive aggression. A misplaced calling card can end friendships and possibly set off the next World War. Hope you practiced your eye, just happened to be in the neighborhood face. First, there's the calling card itself. Not just any scrap of paper, but a small, beautifully engraved rectangle announcing your existence and intentions in no uncertain terms. Your name, in looping script, centered with military precision. Smudged ink? Social doom. Wrong font? Hope you enjoy solitary walks. The cards must be kept in a spotless case, preferably made of silver or mother of pearl, and produced with a flick so elegant it might qualify as performance art. Before a visit, you carefully check the local calendar of acceptability. Mondays are for close family, Tuesdays for social equals, Wednesdays for acquaintances. Calling on a Friday? Practically a declaration of war. Everyone knows Fridays are reserved for the mysterious and the mildly unhinged. Arrive too early, and you're overeager. Too late, and you're an afterthought. There is a 12-minute window in which you may knock, ring, or if you're feeling daring, tap politely. Upon arrival, you are greeted not by your friend, but by an army of servants, each one trained in the subtle art of screening the socially suspect. You hand over your calling card with a serene smile, as though you haven't spent 10 minutes rehearsing this exact gesture. The servant accepts it with the gravity of someone accepting an international peace treaty and disappears, leaving you standing in the hall surrounded by floral wallpaper and existential dread. What happens next is out of your hands. If the hostess is at home, you'll be ushered into a parlor that smells faintly of violets and suppressed boredom. There, conversation follows a strict script. Compliment the furnishings, remark on the weather, and, under no circumstances, mention the disastrous incident with Mrs. Butterfield's poodle. If the hostess is not at home, and she often isn't, especially if you've recently been the subject of rumor, your card is left on a silver tray as a record of your futile attempt at friendship. Reciprocity is everything. Should you receive a card in return, it must be acknowledged within 3 days, no more, no less, or risk an escalating feud conducted entirely by proxy and paper. If the handwriting on the returned card seems hasty or the paper is suspiciously thin, It's a coded message. I see you, but I am not impressed. Entire relationships are built, maintained, or detonated on the thickness of cardstock and the flourish of an initial. The real intrigue comes with the turning down of a corner, a secret sign system as complex as semaphore, with a side of emotional whiplash. A folded upper right corner. Congratulations, you've been accepted for a future visit. Folded lower left. The family is in mourning, or possibly just tired of company. No fold at all, the emotional equivalent of a Victorian ghosting. For the truly daring, there's the I just happened to be passing by visit, which is never believed but always performed. You arrive at the door, feigning surprise, and leave your card as if to say, "See? I'm spontaneous." No one is fooled, but everyone agrees to the charade. As you head home, you can't help but marvel at the sheer bureaucratic majesty of the social web. One misplaced card, one ill-timed call, and your name is immortalized in the unofficial neighborhood ledger of shame. Yet, if you play the game well, paper perfect, timing flawless, tone neutral but friendly, you may just be rewarded with the holy grail of social invitations, the formal tea. In 1905, friendship isn't forged in conversation. It's built in the delicate, paper-thin trenches of calling cards, a game where the bravest thing you can do is fold the right corner. If someone comes calling, it's time to become a whirlwind of genteel hospitality. Offer tea with exactly 3 biscuits. Not 2, you savage. And for goodness sake, don't let the conversation veer toward politics, indigestion, or worst of all, the change. Being a hostess in 1905 is less about relaxing in your own home and more about a high-stakes performance in which you play the role of gracious monarch, crisis negotiator, and human vending machine, often all at once. You hear the doorbell, and a Pavlovian response takes over. Posture straightens, smile widens, and you suddenly develop the ability to glide across a carpeted floor with alarming speed. The goal is to reach the door before the visitor begins contemplating your taste in umbrella stands. The initial greeting is a choreography of compliments and handshakes, all while quietly assessing if your visitor's shoes are muddy enough to ruin your new rug. Your voice must be warm, but not too enthusiastic. This isn't a carnival. Escort your guest into the parlor, praying the dog hasn't made any contributions to the upholstery and that the flowers in the vase are still alive and not just faking it, like you. Tea is non-negotiable. Within moments, you summon it with the ceremonial ringing of a bell or the strategic deployment of a servant, should one be available and not traumatized by your last attempt at scones. The tray arrives with cups, saucers, a mismatched teapot, family heirloom, and the legendary 3 biscuits, each stacked to imply abundance but rationed to prevent biscuit anarchy. Too many, and you're careless. Too few, and you're cheap. Exactly 3, the golden mean of hospitality. As you pour the tea, there is a ritualized silence, a sacred pause in which all present contemplate the temperature of the beverage, the stability of the saucer, and their place in the social food chain. Pour for your guest first, but not before checking how they take it. Milk before tea? Tea before milk? This is not just a preference. It's a declaration of alliance in the never-ending civil war of polite society. Conversation, like tea, must be handled with caution. Appropriate topics include the weather, seasonal preserves, the relative superiority of various types of embroidery, and the recent church bazaar. Avoid all references to politics, too divisive, bodily ailments, too real, or any mention of Aunt Mildred's adventure with the faulty corset, too memorable. A truly skillful hostess can deflect any conversational grenade with a simple, "How lovely," or "Isn't that just the way?" delivered with practiced vagueness and a smile that reveals nothing. Of course, Every hostess lives in fear of the rogue guest, someone who insists on discussing tariffs, personal tragedy, or, most shockingly, last night's dreams. If a guest mentions something scandalous, such as indigestion or a woman's change of life, you have two options: faint gracefully or redirect the conversation so quickly you create a minor breeze. How about another biscuit? Is the traditional life raft. Throughout the visit, you're expected to maintain a delicate balance between attentiveness and nonchalance. Too attentive, and you seem desperate. Too casual, and you're branded indifferent. If your guest lingers too long, etiquette dictates a series of escalating hints. Increased glance at the clock, suddenly urgent interest in your own shoes, or, in dire circumstances, the gentle closing of the teapot lid, a universal sign that the party is over. At last, the visit concludes. You stand, thank your guest for coming, and escort them to the door with the same grace you greeted them. Once alone, you collapse, mentally tallying every potential misstep, every questionable biscuit, and every conversational near miss. You replay the afternoon like a silent film, wondering if you accidentally offered the left-handed cup or let slip a controversial opinion about plum preserves. Congratulations, you've survived another visit. In the Etiquette Olympics of 1905, simply making it to the end with everyone's dignity intact is a gold medal performance. Tomorrow you'll do it all again, but tonight you get the biggest biscuit. The afternoon tea party is the social Super Bowl. Pinkies out, elbows in, voice soft as a kitten's sigh. If you drop a cucumber sandwich, you must pretend it never existed. Any deviation from the tea script, and you'll be gently erased from society's guest list. Tea time in 1905 is less a casual snack and more a battleground disguised with floral tablecloths and good intentions. The stakes are high. Your reputation, your future invitations, and your last remaining hope of being invited to the summer garden party. Step 1. Arrive precisely on time. Never early, never late. The truly gifted may arrive 5 minutes late, but only if they possess the confidence of a duchess and the alibi of a master spy. You are greeted by the hostess, who is already balancing 5 separate conversations and her own barely contained nerves. You're shown to a seat, but not just any seat. It's been arranged in a social algorithm more complex than chess. Sitting in the wrong spot could realign neighborhood alliances. Take your chair gently, smoothing your skirt as you go, and whatever you do, don't sit until you're invited. The table itself is a minefield of etiquette. China cups thin enough to see through, plates arranged in a formation that would impress a general, and napkins folded into origami swans, all standing guard over towers of delicate sandwiches and cakes. You are here for polite conversation, not sustenance. Hunger is unseemly, and eating with enthusiasm is strictly for children and the recently widowed. As tea is poured, the script begins. You accept your cup with a murmur of gratitude, fingers poised in the internationally recognized teacup claw. Pinky extended, but never at a right angle. This is tea, not fencing. Sip quietly. The only acceptable noise is the sound of distant birdsong, or possibly your own internal screaming. Next, the sandwiches. The classic cucumber is a test of dexterity and restraint, cut into triangles so small they could pass for postage stamps. One does not take 2 at once, nor does one ever, under any circumstances, ask for more. Eating a sandwich. Small, silent bites. Should you drop one, perhaps due to nerves or the slickness of a rogue mayonnaise, maintain composure, look the other way, it never happened. If anyone witnessed your lapse, they are bound by the unspoken code of tea to forget it immediately, or at least wait until after you've left to mention it to their sister. Conversation is its own delicate ritual. Approved topics, gardens, recent church functions, the latest serialized novel. Banned subjects, politics, medical complaints, or the real reason, Mrs. Evans hasn't been seen in daylight for 2 weeks. Laughter must be soft. Jokes should be gentle, never pointed. Should you inadvertently say something clever, immediately apologize and change the subject. There is, of course, the legendary cake dilemma. Slices must be small enough to eat in 2 bites, never 3. Frosting may be sampled, but never licked from the fingers. If you encounter an unidentifiable flavor, simply declare, "How delightful," and do not make eye contact with the hostess, who knows exactly how much you're suffering. Throughout, you must remain vigilant. Elbows off the table. Napkin in the lap. Refuse second helpings at least once before accepting. And never, ever let your teacup clink too loudly when set down. There's a rumor that somewhere, in the deep heart of London, a woman was once struck from every guest list for setting her cup down with an audible clack. You're not sure if it's true, but you're not about to find out. When tea is over, you thank your hostess profusely, compliment the table, never the food directly, it's too forward, and make your exit as gracefully as a swan drifting downstream. You made it, unscathed, unnoticed, and, most importantly, still on the invitation list. Tea time is over. Your nerves and your pinky finger can finally rest. Texting is easy. Handwriting a letter in flawless cursive on monogrammed stationery, with the correct ink and the correct level of subtle judgment, that's an art form. Get the salutation wrong, and you've just declared war. You sit at your writing desk, a small battlefield covered in blotters, sharpened nibs, and stationery so elegant you're afraid to touch it with unsanctioned hands. Choosing the correct paper is the first hurdle. Cream for family, blue for acquaintances, and only the very bold send pink, reserved for intimate friends or emotional emergencies. Your initials are embossed in the corner, as if to say, "I am important and also extremely capable of following directions." The ink must be black or navy. Anything else is considered a cry for help. Fountain pens are preferred. Pencils are for children, artists, and people who have given up on social progress. The etiquette manuals recommend testing your pen on a separate piece of paper. No smudges allowed. Of course, you immediately smudge the second line and must start again. That's just the way it goes. Now, to the salutation. "Dear Mrs. Pembroke" is safe. "My dearest Emily" should only be used if you have shared at least 3 secrets, a family recipe, and an incident involving a runaway horse. Too formal, and you sound cold. Too familiar, and you risk scandal. Entire families have fallen out over the placement of a comma after dear. Your handwriting itself is not merely legible but an outward expression of your moral fiber. Rounded loops, upright posture, never a cross-out, or, heaven forbid, a doodle in the margin. You once heard of a girl who absent-mindedly sketched a chicken on her cousin's letter, and she hasn't been invited to a single picnic since. Letters are not for creativity, they are for discipline and careful subtext. Every letter is a coded performance, especially when it comes to gossip. You never write, "Mrs. Abernathy is a menace to society, and her sponge cake is dry." Instead, you master the subtle burn. "Mrs. Abernathy was, as always, a source of great interest, and her baking left an impression." Anyone reading will know precisely what you mean, especially Mrs. Abernathy. If you have actual news, say, someone's engagement, a new baby, or a mysterious carriage accident on Oak Street, you must share it with layers of plausible deniability. It has been said, though I would never wish to repeat rumor, that Mr. Chumley's horse returned to the stables last Thursday without him. How dreadful. In this way, you can relay an entire week's worth of village happenings without ever being accused of direct gossip. It's the original just asking questions defense. But beware. your recipient may be equally skilled in the fine art of inference. If you mention you saw someone in high spirits, it could mean anything from a budding romance to an unfortunate run-in with sherry before noon. Entire friendships have flourished or withered over the true meaning of she seemed herself, yet not herself. The signature, too, is loaded with danger. Yours sincerely is safe. Yours truly is warmer, but can be misinterpreted. Affectionately is a bombshell unless you're writing to a lifelong friend or your favorite aunt. For mail correspondence, respectfully is the only way to ensure your letter isn't read aloud in court. Once your letter is finished, you fold it with geometric precision, slip it into an envelope, seal facing up, never down, and affix the stamp at a perfect right angle. Woe betide anyone who licks it crooked. It's rumored the postman keeps a list. As your letter is carried off, you can only hope it's interpreted correctly and not weaponized by the wrong hands. For in 1905, the pen is mightier than the sword, especially if it's wielded with perfect penmanship and just the right hint of judgment. Shopping in 1905 is not a grab-and-go affair. It's a ballet of manners and small talk, from greeting the shopkeeper to feigning joy over the world's scratchiest stockings. Heaven forbid you haggle. The only thing less polite is asking for a refund. Your shopping day begins with preparation worthy of a minor military campaign. Gloves, hat, and at least one friend or family member. Never shop alone, lest someone suspect you of independent thought. You march into the store, posture perfect. Your shopping list discreetly folded like a secret treaty. The bell above the door tinkles with the gravity of a church organ. Instantly, all eyes are on you. The shopkeeper, the assistant, and the other patrons, each silently hoping you'll be the one to ask for something scandalous, like a colored ribbon or, worse, a magazine. The first trial is the greeting. You offer a soft, "Good morning," neither too loud, vulgar, nor too soft, aloof. The shopkeeper returns it with a bow or a curtsy, depending on their own training in the dark arts of retail etiquette. Now begins the dance, a slow waltz around hat stands, glove displays, and towers of neatly folded chemises. To point at an item is rude. You must indicate interest by drifting toward it, and perhaps allowing your eyes to linger with practiced longing. Only then may you quietly ask to see that petticoat in the window, if it wouldn't be too much trouble. The assistant retrieves it, handling it as though it's a sacred relic. You inspect the fabric, coarse as ever, but exclaim how lovely it is. You're here to purchase, not to insult someone's great aunt who might have woven the lace. If it scratches, you say, "So sturdy." If the color is drab, you murmur, "How delightfully practical for every occasion." Enthusiasm is expected, but not too much. Shopping is, above all, a test of restraint. Next, the ritual of selection. You are never to touch the stock without permission. Want to feel the material? The assistant will place it in your hands, as if entrusting you with a newborn. If you recoil, your face must not betray you. You nod, thoughtfully, as though deciding the fate of a small nation. If you request another size, it's done with profound apology. If it's not too much inconvenience, might I see the medium as well? The assistant vanishes to consult the back room, which, for all you know, leads to Narnia. Pricing is its own social tightrope. There are no tags. The assistant whispers the price as if revealing a state secret. Haggling is beneath you, strictly the province of market-goers, not respectable ladies. If the sum seems outrageous, you nod with regal acceptance and wonder what you can go without this month. To sigh or grimace is to suggest you do not understand the value of fine goods, which is almost as bad as admitting you can't do long division. Finally, the purchase. You pay, discreetly, from a change, purse, or account. Receipts are rare, but should you receive one, it must be tucked away like contraband. The final ordeal, the package. It is tied with twine and perhaps a sprig of lavender. You thank the assistant, who thanks you more, and you exit with a sense of accomplishment and possibly a petticoat you'll never wear. As for refunds, unthinkable. If you dare return an item, you do so with a letter of apology, a plausible story of mistaken identity, and a strong desire to never show your face in that shop again. Because shopping in 1905 isn't about efficiency or choice. It's a slow-motion parade of manners, patience, and silent suffering, where the real purchase is a reputation for perfect decorum, even if your new petticoat feels like burlap dipped in regret. You thought hats were just for sun protection? Think again. There are hats for every hour, every event, and every emotional state. Choose the wrong one, and you'll be discussed at length in a neighbor's letter to her cousin in Ohio. Hats in 1905 are not accessories. They are declarations of status, personality, and occasionally, one's willingness to endure pain for social acceptance. Each morning, your hat selection process begins with the kind of gravitas most people reserve for medical decisions. You stand before your hat stand, gazing at a dizzying display of ribbons, feathers, veils, and brims so wide they could double as rowboats in an emergency. The question isn't, will this hat match my dress? It's, will this hat ensure I am not the subject of a pointed sermon at Sunday tea? The rules are exhaustive and exhausting. Mourning hats must be modest, understated, and firmly secured with no fewer than 17 hat pins. Afternoon calls require something a bit grander. Think soft florals and the sort of bow that could startle a timid lapdog. If you are venturing out for shopping or errands, a walking hat is necessary. Practical, sturdy, but still giving the impression that you might be on your way to receive an award for good taste. A hat that is too small, frivolous. Too large, showy. Worn at a rakish angle, scandalous. If your hat is ever accused of being too jaunty, immediately remove and replace it, and issue a formal apology to any potted ferns that may have witnessed the transgression. Special events, of course, demand special hats. Church hats are a league of their own, impossibly tall, festooned with enough flowers and fruit to inspire a still life painting, and requiring the posture of a Roman statue to keep upright. Weddings? Only the palest, most delicate creations, lest you be accused of upstaging the bride. And don't even get started on mourning hats, which come with their own strictures, black veils, minimal adornment, and a somber tilt, just so the world knows you are suffering, but still respectable. Then there's the logistics. Affixing a hat properly is a minor engineering marvel. First, arrange your hair into a style that will not collapse under the weight of an ornamental bird. Next, select your arsenal of hat pins, each longer than your forearm and sharper than the social commentary at Mrs. Wadsworth's luncheon. Insert at strategic angles, making sure your hat could withstand a hurricane or, at the very least, an enthusiastic greeting from an overzealous clergyman. But it's not just about survival, it's about strategy. Your hat must be removed at the correct moments. Never at the dinner table, always in the drawing room, only sometimes at the theatre, and absolutely never in a moving carriage, lest you reveal the terrifying secrets of your flattened hair. If you forget, someone will be sure to remind you, usually with a cough or a pointed glance. And woe betide anyone who places a hat on a bed, bad luck for days, or at least until the next social crisis. In the rare, quiet moments when you are home alone, you may be tempted to try on hats just for fun. Don't be fooled. This is how people get ideas. And ideas are the first step toward chaos. Best to keep your imagination in check and your milliner on speed dial. By day's end, you will have navigated the perils of the hat parade, endured the pinpricks, balanced a veritable aviary on your scalp, and emerged with both reputation and hair intact. Tomorrow, you'll do it all over again because in 1905, hats are more than fashion. They are your social armor, your silent introduction, and the world's most visible headache. Public transport is less about getting somewhere and more about surviving without causing a scandal. Ladies always sit straight, never cross their legs, and must pretend not to notice when a gentleman offers his seat, but must accept, of course, or risk appearing difficult. Boarding the streetcar in 1905 is an act of courage. The air smells faintly of coal, cologne, and yesterday's rain, and every seat is a minefield of invisible rules. Your gloves are buttoned, your hat is pinned with the precision of a bridge engineer, and your only hope is to reach your destination without attracting the gaze of the dreaded society watchdog, a woman in an intimidating feathered bonnet, always prepared to recount your every movement at tea. First, there's the entrance. Never rush. Step gracefully up, one gloved hand on the rail, the other clutching your reticule. Jostling is for small children and anarchists. Once aboard, you scan for a seat. But don't be too obvious about it. Lingering in the aisle is acceptable for up to 2 stops, any longer. And you're making a spectacle. Stand tall, shoulders back, eyes gently unfocused as if you are above mortal discomfort. When a gentleman rises to offer his seat, the performance truly begins. You must act as if the offer was completely unexpected, smile modestly, and accept with a soft thank you. Refusing is not an option. It implies you are either stubborn or have ideas above your station, neither of which society is ready to forgive. As you sit, fold your skirt just so, tuck your feet beneath the bench, and avoid sprawling. Slouching is strictly forbidden, unless you want the conductor's full attention and a scandalized entry in the neighborhood ledger. Now that you're seated, the real challenge is remaining so. You must never cross your legs at the knee. A dainty ankle cross is allowed, provided it doesn't disrupt the flow of conversation or the seat next to you. Your posture should say, "I am composed, well-bred, and unlikely to cause a scene, even if we derail." If the streetcar lurches unexpectedly, grab the nearest handle or your seat with a touch of practiced nonchalance. Flailing is for opera divas and small terriers. The social codes extend to your fellow passengers. Never initiate conversation with a stranger, unless the roof is actively collapsing. Even then, keep small talk light. Terrible weather for silk stockings, or "Isn't it remarkable how swiftly the motorman handles the hills?" If you encounter a friend, keep your voice low. There is nothing more distressing than overhearing someone discuss Aunt Matilda's rheumatism across a crowded carriage. Should someone step on your foot, and they will, you must respond with a polite, "not at all," or a gentle smile, even as you plot their slow downfall. Glaring is unladylike. Open complaint is an act of rebellion. On rare occasions, you might be forced to stand for the entirety of your journey, balancing with grace as you weave around the crowd, your expressions serene, your feet silently cursing every new passenger. Exiting is a final test, never push. Rise with poise, gather your skirt, and thank any gentleman who moves aside. If you drop a glove, or, fate forbid, your hat, recover it with dignity, as if you meant to conduct a social experiment in humility. Step down to the street, head high, posture perfect. No matter how rattled you feel inside, you've survived the streetcar, unflustered, unscandalized, and still on speaking terms with your dignity. And tomorrow, you'll do it all again, quietly grateful for every seat offered and every society watchdog who didn't catch you crossing your ankles just a shade too high. Restaurants in 1905 are battlegrounds of cutlery and coded glances. There are utensils for every food group, including some you didn't know existed. Make a mistake with the oyster fork, and someone 3 tables over will write about it in their diary. Dining out is not about nourishment. It is a live-action etiquette exam where the stakes are nothing less than your reputation, your family's honor, and your continued eligibility for next week's croquet invitation. The moment you cross the threshold of a respectable eatery, you're greeted by the maitre d', a figure whose sole purpose seems to be silently judging your posture and the feather in your hat. You're escorted to a table with all the ceremony of a royal procession. At least 2 waiters are present at all times, each with a towel draped over their arm and the faint, haunted look of a man who's seen too many soup spills. You're seated, and suddenly you're facing a phalanx of silverware. Forks to the left, knives and spoons to the right. A mysterious implement above your plate, whose function is known only to the chef and maybe a secret society of hostesses. The rule: start from the outside and work your way in. Unless, of course, the menu has been changed, in which case you're on your own and should just try to copy whatever Mrs. Blank Appleton is doing, as she's never put a foot wrong in her life. Ordering is a performance. You must never appear indecisive, but also not too eager, choosing your dish with the gravitas of someone signing a peace treaty. French terms abound, and if you mispronounce hors d'oeuvre, the waiter may smile, but the table will remember. If you ask about substitutions, do so in a whisper, and be prepared for the chef to emerge and challenge you to a duel. The first course arrives. Soup. Here is your first chance to fail publicly. Soup must be spooned away from you, not toward, otherwise you risk splashing, which is the social equivalent of setting fire to the tablecloth. Slurping is unforgivable, as is blowing on your soup. If it's too hot, simply wait in silence and try not to think about the growing number of people analyzing your every move. Bread is next. Do not, under any circumstances, bite directly into a roll. Break off a small piece, butter it, eat, repeat. Anything else, and you'll become the subject of a moral lesson in someone's household. The main course brings with it a fresh wave of utensils. There are knives for fish, knives for meat, forks for salads, forks for nothing in particular. If there are oysters, congratulations. You must now use a fork so tiny it looks like it was designed by and for mice. Use the wrong fork, and the consequences are dire. You may catch the eye of a distant cousin who will shake her head so subtly it registers only in the deepest recesses of your shame. During conversation, keep your voice low, your stories bland, and your laughter soft. Do not, under any circumstances, discuss digestion, finances, or, worst of all, politics. If you drop a utensil, ignore it and hope it disappears. Summoning a waiter to retrieve it is permissible only after you've ensured no one is looking. Dessert is served with a spoon and fork. No, you may not just use your fingers, even if the pastry crumbles with a vengeance. Applauding the dessert is frowned upon. A quiet murmur of appreciation will suffice. At meal's end, thank the host, leave a discreet tip, and make your exit with the quiet dignity of someone who survived yet another round at the dining table front lines. And as you walk out, remember, dining out in 1905 isn't about enjoying food. It's about demonstrating, under extreme pressure, that you know exactly what to do with a fish knife, and, more importantly, what never to do with the oyster fork. Dating in the 1900s is a labyrinth with no map. Conversations are chaperoned, glances are strictly timed, and touching hands is basically a marriage proposal. There are so many unspoken rules. You'll need a legal pad and possibly a personal attorney. Let's say you catch the eye of a suitable gentleman at church, or perhaps at the post office while pretending not to notice him. He does not approach you. He approaches your mother, or your aunt, or any nearby woman with enough grey hair to have opinions on the price of wallpaper. Permission is requested, references quietly checked, and then, if fate is kind, you are allowed to be formally introduced. If this process sounds like diplomatic negotiations, that's because it is, only with more ruffles and significantly less honesty. Now you may exchange pleasantries, always in the company of a vigilant chaperone. Think of her as the human equivalent of an electric fence. Every conversation is performed at a safe distance, usually while perched on opposite sides of an aggressively floral settee. Questions about books, the weather, or possibly cheese are encouraged. Opinions, especially strong ones, are frowned upon. You are to be agreeable, but not so agreeable as to seem forward. Your goal is to hint at intelligence without ever actually using it. Should the gentleman wish to see you again, he will send a calling card, delivered by hand or by a servant who pretends not to notice the nerves in the hallway. If your family approves, you may invite him to a supervised afternoon tea or, for the daring, a walk in the park, provided your chaperone is present and at least 3 paces behind, close enough to overhear, but far enough away to allow for the illusion of privacy. Any deviation from this choreography, and you risk immediate social exile and at least 2 strongly worded letters from distant relatives. Physical contact is a legal minefield. Accidentally brushing hands while reaching for the teapot? Prepare for a week of speculative gossip and the expectation of an engagement announcement. If, in a moment of wild abandon, your gloved finger grazes his sleeve, the neighborhood may well declare a national emergency. Hugging is reserved for cousins, fiancés, barely, and, occasionally, dogs. Anything else, and you might as well elope to a foreign country. Written correspondence, that 1905 equivalent of direct messaging, is even more treacherous. Every letter is scrutinized, both for content and for hidden meanings. Dear Miss Carter, I trust this note finds you well, is fine. Dear Lily, I find myself thinking of you often is enough to trigger the family alarm system and possibly the local fire brigade. Letters must be composed with the discretion of a master spy. Warm, but not too warm. Personal, but never intimate. Any letter discovered by a meddling sibling may be interpreted, reinterpreted, and read aloud at dinner. Public outings are no safer. Dances are strictly choreographed, with each step mapped by etiquette manuals and the disapproving eyes of every mother in the room. Dancing more than 2 times with the same partner? Scandal. Being seen alone on a veranda? Catastrophe. It's less a waltz and more a competitive sport where the referees are your extended family and the only trophy is a potential fiancé who remembers not to double-dip his crumpet. If, against all odds, the courtship is deemed a success, the proposal is orchestrated as a solemn event. Kneeling, presenting a modest ring, and seeking family blessing are all required. Afterward, there's a flurry of announcements, formal visits, and the slow realization that surviving courtship was merely the tutorial for the even more complex game of married life. Congratulations. You've made it through the courtship code. Now, brace yourself. Married life comes with its own instruction manual, and rumor has it, it's even longer. A ball is less about dancing and more about managing your card, the actual physical card, listing partners. Dancing more than twice with the same man? Immediate scandal. Forgetting a partner? Social death. Your evening begins not with excitement, but with a pen and a sense of creeping dread. The dance card, a tiny booklet, delicately tied with a ribbon and inscribed with gold, will be your guide, your jailer, and, if you're lucky, your alibi for the rest of the night. At the top, the names of the night's dances are already printed in elegant script: waltz, quadrille, polka, mazurka, and at least one number that seems invented just to confuse you. As the guests arrive, the men cluster at one end of the room, like nervous deer. The women, arrayed in pastels and hope, guard their cards fiercely. Each gentleman must formally request a dance, and you must inscribe his name in the correct box. There's a precise choreography to this social ritual. A shy nod, a murmured, "May I have this waltz?" and a quick check to ensure you don't accidentally schedule Lord Wainwright for 2 polkas in a row. The horror. Woe to the girl who accepts too many dances from the same partner. More than twice, and you'll have people whispering about your future wedding, warns your mother, who has not slept through a ball since 1873. On the other hand, turning down too many invitations makes you difficult or odd. There is a mysterious sweet spot in which you appear sought after, but not suspiciously so. A balance no mathematician has ever managed to calculate. As the music swells, you clutch your card like a lifeline. Each dance is an exercise in navigation. Spinning in lace and tulle, you must keep your head high and your feet light, all while engaging in witty, but not too witty, conversation. If your partner is charming, you laugh softly. If he is dull, you inquire about the weather, or worse, the cost of carriage repairs. There are rules for the order of partners too. The first and last dances should never be with the same man. Unless you wish to be the subject of midnight gossip, Uncle Edward, as family, is safe for a quadrille but not the romantic waltz. If a partner is missing, perhaps overcome by nerves, or just cleverly hiding in the cloakroom, you must carry on, pretending this was your plan all along. Under no circumstances do you appear disappointed. Disappointment is for Victorians. Forget your partner's name, and the floor might as well open beneath you. Etiquette dictates you smile and say, "How lovely to see you again," while praying the orchestra drowns out your panic. Should you write the wrong name on the wrong line, you may as well retire to a convent. Between dances, you may rest, but never relax. Every moment is a new chance for a misstep, accepting lemonade from the wrong person, standing too close to the potted palms, or fate forbid, laughing too loudly. The chaperones line the walls, eyes sharp as hatpins, noting every interaction for future reference. As the final notes of the last waltz fade, you review your card, smudged, full of names, evidence of your social agility. You made it. No duplicate dances, no accidental engagements, no partners forgotten or forsaken. Congratulations. You survived the dance card dilemma, pirouetting your way through a minefield of manners and matchmaking. Tomorrow, your feet may ache, but your reputation, if you've done it right, will remain perfectly intact. Someone speaks out of turn, stands too close, or, heaven forbid, comments on the weather with inappropriate enthusiasm. You have 3 options. Brandish your fan, deliver a withering glance, or execute a graceful feint. All are acceptable, provided your gloves are spotless. Every respectable woman in 1905 knows the world is full of hazards, and not all of them can be fended off with a parasol. Sometimes, it's the overly friendly grocer who inquires after your health, as if you're about to expire right there in the jam aisle. Sometimes, it's a stranger on the trolley, eager to share his opinions about the latest city ordinance on dog walking. And occasionally, it's cousin Lionel, whose definition of personal space is as old-fashioned as his mustache wax. The first line of defense, the fan, not just a tool for summer breezes. Oh no, in the hands of a 1905 lady, it's a tactical social instrument. With a swift flick, you can snap it open, sending a clear message. You are approaching the boundaries of decency. Slow, deliberate fanning says you are tolerating the conversation, but only just. Rapid fluttering, especially accompanied by a narrowed gaze, indicates imminent social frostbite. Fans are coded communication, like Morse code, but prettier and less forgiving. Should the offense escalate, a bold comment about your hat, or worse, your reading habits, you may deploy the legendary side eye. This is not a simple glance, it's an art. Eyes slide sideways, lips tighten, and an eyebrow arches with the force of 1,000 disappointed headmistresses. The side eye is a silent rebuke, as sharp as any whispered reprimand. Delivered correctly, it can wilt flowers at 10 paces and send errant suitors scuttling for the punch bowl. But sometimes, even the most disciplined fan or the iciest stare won't suffice. Enter the graceful feint, the ultimate reset button of Edwardian society. Executed with a soft sigh and a practiced swoon, a feint allows you to escape any unwanted conversation with style. Bonus points if you manage to fall onto a conveniently placed chaise lounge. Just be sure to loosen your corset beforehand. A true feint is dramatic, but no one wants to upstage the hostess with an actual medical emergency. The trick is to look vulnerable, not unwell. Mysterious, not tragic. And above all, never wrinkle your dress in the process. Of course, all of these responses must be undertaken with immaculate gloves. Stained, torn, or worst of all, forgotten gloves send the message that you have surrendered all hope of dignity. Clean gloves say you are still in control, ready for whatever social peril the day brings. Gloves, like armor, are never to be removed in the heat of battle. Behind these defensive maneuvers lies a quiet sisterhood of solidarity. Other women in the room see your fan snap, your eyebrow twitch, your fainting flourish, and understand completely. Later, when you cross paths in the street or at tea, you'll exchange a subtle nod. The code has been upheld, the enemy repelled. Unwanted attention may be inevitable, but succumbing to it is not. When all else fails, remember, you are never alone. Society's gaze is everywhere, and for every rogue who dares step too close, there are 3 matrons ready to leap to your defense. With pursed lips, a sniff, and the collective power of disapproval passed down through generations. So you dust off your skirt, adjust your gloves, and rejoin the party. Another day, another victory in the endless, elegant war against unwanted attention. And tomorrow, your fan will be ready, your side eye sharpened, your fainting couch within arm's reach, just in case. Good deeds must be done, but not too obviously. Church and charity visits have their own subtle signals: what to wear, where to sit, who to ignore. Give too much, you're showing off. Give too little, you're heartless. There's a chart somewhere, probably. Sunday morning arrives, and with it, the relentless pageantry of piety. Your outfit is preordained, not your best dress, that's for weddings and personal triumphs, but something somber and respectable. The color must suggest humility without implying poverty, accessorized with gloves that are neither new nor worn. Hat selection is crucial. A feather is acceptable. A stuffed bird is not, unless you wish to be whispered about during the closing hymn. On the way to church, you practice the correct gait, measured, dignified, but not so slow as to suggest a limp or a grudge against the Sabbath. Arrive too early, and you risk looking overeager. Too late, and everyone will turn to judge the color of your stockings. Entering the nave, you pause, scan for social landmines, and select your pew, not the front, reserved for the conspicuously devout, not the back, for the late, the lost, and the possibly Lutheran, but somewhere in the respectful middle. Your seat is not just a seat. It is a declaration of social alliances, rivalries, and, occasionally, generational feuds. Sit beside the wrong family and you may find yourself excluded from the next bake sale. Sit too far from the pulpit and your spiritual commitment will be questioned by Mrs. Peabody, who makes it her business to know the business of everyone within 3 counties. The service begins, and so does the ballet of observation. You sing, but not too loudly. Fold your hands, but not ostentatiously. Close your eyes during prayer, but never for so long that you're suspected of napping. Children must be hushed with the kind of subtlety that only comes from years of practice. One raised eyebrow, a gentle tap on the knee, and a smile that says, "Don't even think about it." Then comes the offering plate. This is not a simple transaction. Coins must be selected at home and polished to a gentle glow. Bills folded discreetly so the denomination is ambiguous but impressive. As you drop your alms into the plate, you must look both humble and generous, as if the money has caused you both spiritual satisfaction and mild personal anguish. Any sign of calculation? A pause? A second look at your purse? And you'll be discussed in the churchyard for weeks. Charity work is a minefield all its own. Volunteer for every committee and you're trying too hard. Volunteer for none and your soul is surely in peril. The correct answer is 2. One for show, one for the satisfaction of a life well lived. At the bake sale, you must purchase someone else's fudge, even if it tastes like regret, and accept praise for your own, even if it came from a shop. When delivering baskets to the poor, your arrival should be early enough to be noticed, but late enough to allow your hat to be seen by the maximum number of people. Conversation after church is its own trial. What a lovely service. Is always safe. I do hope the new rector's sermon was not too spirited is for advanced practitioners. Never, under any circumstances, critique the flower arrangements unless you wish to be made responsible for them until kingdom come. As you return home, hat securely pinned, soul gently uplifted, you reflect on the delicate dance of charity and church. To the uninitiated, it looks effortless. To you, it is a weekly test of balance, humility, and biscuit selection. You have done good, been seen doing good, and, crucially, not been seen doing too much good. Congratulations. You have survived another Sunday, your reputation intact, your conscience clear, and your place in the pew secure at least until next week. Parenting is less about love and more about producing well-mannered miniatures. There are instructions for everything, from napkin folding to the proper volume of a child's giggle. Any deviation, and the family name is doomed. Your journey as a mother in 1905 begins before breakfast, coaching your offspring on how to greet the household staff without looking directly at anyone for too long. Never run in the hallways, you remind them, unless the house is on fire, and even then, try not to look flustered. The children nod solemnly, their expressions a mix of terror and starch. After all, etiquette is not merely a suggestion, it's the family legacy. Dressing your child is a logistical operation. First, they must be layered in enough petticoats to survive a fall from a modest height. Socks must be pulled up to precisely 2 finger widths below the knee. Hair is parted, combed, and secured with ribbons that are regulation color, never too bright, lest someone mistake your daughter for a circus performer. For boys, collars are starched to such stiffness that turning the head is optional and only performed when absolutely necessary. Mealtimes are not about nourishment, but rehearsal. Tiny hands are drilled in the sacred rites of napkin placement, fork selection, and butter etiquette. Should a child slurp their soup, or, heaven forbid, spill milk, the air in the dining room grows heavy with ancestral disappointment. You exchange a look with your spouse, both of you silently recalling that one cousin who chewed with his mouth open and was never spoken of again. Conversation for children is permitted, provided it's conducted at a volume somewhere between librarian and mouse. Topics include the weather, their studies, or praise for the blandness of the morning porridge. Any remark about digestive processes, insects, or, worst of all, bodily noises, results in instant exile to the naughty chair, a punishment with fewer human rights than most countries. Public outings are a fresh gauntlet. You march your brood through the park, each child instructed to smile demurely at adults and offer a brief, tasteful bow to anyone over 40. Running is strictly forbidden unless fleeing an actual bear. Climbing trees? Out of the question, unless you wish your family name to be associated forever with the Great Sap Stain incident. Children must walk in tidy rows, as if auditioning for a spot in a particularly anxious parade. Church is perhaps the ultimate etiquette crucible. Here, your children's every fidget is magnified by stained glass and the unblinking eyes of the congregation. Whispers are met with glares, dropped hymnals with gasps. It's understood that children are to appear angelic for exactly 45 minutes, after which all bets are off and you pray only for survival. If a guest visits, the children are summoned for inspection. They must curtsy or bow, offer a handshake, but never squeeze, and answer questions with no more than 4 words. Yes, thank you, no ma'am. And, the weather is lovely, will get them through most social encounters. Should a child display actual personality, laughter, wit, or curiosity, there's always an older relative to step in and gently remind them that children are to be seen and not heard, but preferably not seen either. At day's end, you tally up the etiquette infractions like a general reviewing the battlefield. Surviving a single day without social scandal is cause for celebration. Quiet, dignified celebration, of course, lest the neighbors think you've become French. Your children, scrubbed and exhausted, fall asleep dreaming of forks, bows, and the distant hope of running barefoot someday. You sigh, satisfied. You may not have raised the happiest children, but you have raised the most presentable ones. And in 1905, that's the real measure of parental love. Feeling unwell? Don't let anyone know. Cough discreetly, sneeze into an embroidered handkerchief, and never ever discuss symptoms. If you must perish, do so quietly in a well-ventilated parlor. In 1905, being ill is less a medical event and more a test of one's dedication to the sacred art of polite denial. You wake up with a throat like sandpaper and a fever so fierce you could boil tea on your forehead. But etiquette demands that you soldier on. The first rule of illness is secrecy. Your job is to blend in, no matter how loudly your lungs are threatening to stage a revolution. At the breakfast table, you suppress every tickle in your throat, convinced that even a single cough will mark you as an attention seeker. Should you feel a sneeze coming on, you must execute it with the precision of a secret handshake, swift, silent, and buried deep in a monogrammed handkerchief. No honking into crumpled tissues or apocalyptic nose-blowing allowed. A gentle ahem is the limit of permissible noise. Should you be caught in the act, you are expected to apologize profusely for the disturbance, as if you've just knocked over the Queen's favorite vase. In a family gathering, everyone will pretend they didn't notice. It's considered more polite to believe you're allergic to the furniture than to acknowledge actual germs exist in polite society. You absolutely never discuss your symptoms, even if your complexion has taken on the hue of boiled cabbage. Saying, "I'm a little under the weather," is already dangerously frank. Any reference to headaches, nausea, or digestive woes will send the room into icy silence and possibly cause Great-Aunt Edna to retire to her fainting couch. Medical conditions are best hinted at through metaphor. A touch of the vapors, the chills, or the ever-mysterious female complaints are socially acceptable, provided no further detail is offered. The same rules apply to every member of the household. Children are trained to sniffle with discretion. Husbands are expected to soldier on, dabbing at their brow with a handkerchief, rather than ever requesting a doctor. If you do send for a physician, the request must be whispered to a servant and explained away as preventative maintenance, never, under any circumstances, as panic. Receiving visitors while ill is an Olympic event. You must prop yourself up with extra pillows. powdered to a faintly lifelike pallor, and swaddled in the most tasteful dressing gown available. The visiting friend is obliged to compliment your brave color and never mention that you look like you've recently lost a duel with a turnip. Tea is served, conversation steers clear of your health, and all inquiries are batted away with, "I'm quite well, thank you. Just a little tired from all the excitement." There has been no excitement. If you must excuse yourself to cough or, heaven help us, vomit, do so with a vague apology about needing a breath of air. The less said, the better. When you return, pretend nothing has happened and immediately compliment the flower arrangement to deflect suspicion. Even in serious cases, suffering is a private matter. Should a family member succumb to influenza, pneumonia, or a particularly stubborn case of ennui, their absence is noted as taking some time for rest or traveling. Funerals are, naturally, the only time when public suffering is permitted, though even then, sobbing should be stylishly restrained. As evening falls and your fever climbs, you congratulate yourself. Not a single complaint uttered, not a single brow furrowed in sympathy. In 1905, the truly refined endure their maladies with silent dignity and an arsenal of embroidered handkerchiefs, suffering, as always, in the most proper way possible. After dinner comes the entertainment, reciting poetry, playing piano, or pretending to enjoy someone's fourth rendition of "O Susanna." There's a rule for when to clap, when to smile, and when to tactfully feign a fainting spell to escape. The evening parlor is a theater of carefully choreographed performances, each act requiring the audience to suspend not just disbelief, but sometimes their very will to live. The chairs are arranged in a semicircle, the air thick with the scent of furniture polish and the unspoken dread of amateur magic tricks. You perch on the edge of your seat, napkin discreetly in hand, bracing for whatever surprise your hostess has planned. There are only 3 acceptable facial expressions: pleasant interest, gentle amusement, and the look of a martyr accepting her fate. First up is the poetry reading. Perhaps it's Cousin Edith, brandishing a slim volume of her own verse, Ode to a Withering Rose, or The Lament of the Lonely Teapot. The correct response is to gaze into the middle distance, occasionally nod, and offer a soft, "How evocative," at the end. Should you inadvertently drift into a daydream about dinner rolls, remember to snap back just in time to catch the last stanza and join in the gentle, measured applause. Too little, and you're unkind. Too much, and you're accused of sarcasm. Next, the musical interlude. The piano is dusted off, and the most promising or most determined family member claims the bench. "Oh, Susanna" is attempted once again, this time in a key unrecognized by modern science. If a violin appears, steel yourself. History suggests at least 3 attempts to tune it, followed by a brief, feverish solo that leaves everyone praying for a blessed string snap. If you must clap, do so politely, hands just far enough apart to make a sound but never so vigorous as to encourage encores. Occasionally, an ambitious guest will offer a parlor trick. These range from mildly amusing, guessing your card, balancing a spoon, to deeply bewildering, reciting all the counties of England in alphabetical order. You are required to react with the same gentle enthusiasm whether they succeed or fail. If a trick goes awry, cards everywhere, a rabbit that refuses to appear, your role is to look away discreetly, as if respecting the performer's privacy at a difficult moment. Conversation between acts is its own tightrope walk. The safest topics are the performance itself, the weather, or a gentle inquiry into the hostess's collection of porcelain cats. Never mention politics, personal health, or your secret desire to escape through the window. Should a silence fall, it's your duty to fill it with a bland but encouraging remark. "How delightful," or What a talented household. The goal is to appear entertained, never overwhelmed. For the truly desperate, there's always the fainting spell. A soft sigh, a graceful slump in the armchair, and the sudden need for fresh air can excuse you from the remainder of the evening without causing offense. If done well, you may even be offered the last biscuit as a reward for your dramatic flair. Finally, as the evening winds down, you thank your hostess profusely, heap praise on the performers, and promise that you simply must try the card trick at home. As you step into the night air, you reflect on your performance. You have smiled, clapped, and survived another night in the parlor with your dignity and your hearing more or less intact. In 1905, evening entertainment is not just a pastime. It's a lesson in endurance, tact, and the subtle art of knowing when to clap, when to sigh, and when to gracefully disappear behind a well-timed feint. As night falls, there's still a checklist. Hair must be braided, prayers said, out loud, in the correct order, and nightwear chosen for maximum modesty. Do not, under any circumstances, be seen brushing your hair in the moonlight. Bedtime in 1905 is a carefully orchestrated affair, less about rest and more about preparing to enter sleep as if you're on display in a department store window. The transition from day to night begins with the ceremonial changing of garments, a process that takes no fewer than 4 steps, each with its own social hazards. First, you must peel off the layers of daywear, unhooking buttons and loosening stays, all while ensuring no one accidentally glimpses so much as a bare elbow. Nightgowns are produced, crisp cotton for summer, thick flannel for winter, always ankle length, and preferably ruffled enough to survive a minor skirmish. Once encased in your sleep attire, you turn to your hair. No simple ponytail here. Braiding is mandatory, both to prevent tangles and to demonstrate to any spectral observers that you were raised correctly. Hair must be brushed precisely 100 times. The etiquette books are firm on this point. But woe to anyone caught doing it in front of an open window. There's a belief that moonlight, upon seeing unbound hair, will cause unruly dreams and possibly attract poets or scandal. Curtains are drawn, brushes are wielded in secret, and every strand is plated with the kind of devotion usually reserved for religious rituals. Now comes the great parade of creams, lotions, and ointments, each promising to keep your complexion as pale as virtue itself. A dab here, a pat there, a prayer that no one ever invents the electric light strong enough to reveal your true pores. Face washing is done at a porcelain basin, splashing quietly so as not to disturb the entire household, and followed by a vigorous towel patting. Your hair is now braided, your skin glowing, your reputation for cleanliness barely hanging on. Then it's time for prayers. No skipping, no abbreviating, and absolutely no falling asleep mid-Hail Mary. Prayers are said aloud, at the bedside, knees on a padded stool, unless your family has modern ideas, in which case the floor will do. Each relative, living and deceased, is mentioned by name, along with general pleas for good weather, good harvests, and deliverance from fainting in public. You're expected to maintain a tone of gentle supplication but not so passionate that the family suspects recent misbehavior. With spiritual obligations complete, you move on to the inspection phase. Are your pajamas buttoned up to the chin? Are your sleeves long enough? Heaven help you if your ankles are visible. For that is the first step down a slippery moral slope. Slippers are donned for the journey from dressing room to bedroom, lest bare feet be seen and the neighbors start talking. Even bedtime reading material is chosen for its wholesomeness. No scandalous novels or racy poetry, just a respectable volume of moral tales, or perhaps a volume of etiquette tips for the advanced insomniac. Finally, it's time to slip into bed, tucking the blankets just so, and positioning yourself as if posing for a portrait. If you share a room with a sibling, there is a last round of whispered reminders. Don't snore. No talking after lights out. And, most crucially, if you have to sneeze, do it quietly. The lamp is turned down, the silence settles, and you drift off, secure in the knowledge that, even asleep, you are the picture of 1905 propriety. Because bedtime, like every other part of your day, is not just a transition but a performance. And in this well-ordered world, the greatest comfort is knowing that, should you dream of rebellion, you'll at least be dressed for it. Society runs on gossip, but never, ever admit it. You must know everything, say nothing, and always pretend you heard it from a friend's cousin's maid. Reputation is everything, and one misstep lives forever in the local rumor mill. In 1905, the most powerful force in any community is not the mayor, not the church, not even the woman's auxiliary, it's gossip. Whispered in drawing rooms, passed along over garden fences, and folded into casual remarks at tea. Gossip is the invisible current powering every social interaction. The scandal sheet is not an actual paper, but a living, breathing organism, updated hourly and distributed exclusively by word of mouth. Its front page might feature your family's little embarrassment about the wrong shade of gloves at last week's bazaar, or Mrs. Chester's suspiciously frequent headaches. Purely medicinal, of course. But to traffic in gossip is, ironically, the one sin nobody will admit to. Your social survival depends on striking the right balance. You must be in the know, but never the source. If asked where you heard something, the correct answer is always, "Oh, it's just what people are saying," or "It's probably nothing, just a little talk." If you ever utter the phrase, "I heard it directly from Mrs. Abernathy," be prepared to have your invitation to the next 3 luncheons mysteriously lost in the post. The art of gathering gossip is as refined as embroidery and twice as competitive. The best practitioners listen with wide eyes, ask gentle, open-ended questions. How interesting, do you really think so? And never betray a hint of judgment, except for the occasional, perfectly timed gasp. You nod sagely, sip your tea, and store every detail for later, never to be used maliciously, of course, but perhaps just to spice up a dull Sunday afternoon, or gently warn a niece about the perils of mismatched buttons. Reputation, meanwhile, is a delicate ecosystem. A well-timed compliment can elevate you from merely pleasant to positively delightful, while an unguarded comment can plunge your standing into the social Mariana Trench. There is a legend that Mrs. Pennington once referred to a neighbor's lemon squares as adequate and spent the next 6 months in conversational exile. Whether or not it's true, everyone treats their adjectives with the caution of a bomb disposal expert. The dangers are everywhere. Arrive at church a little too early, and you're desperate. Arrive late, and you're godless. Wear last year's hat, and you're a miser. Wear this year's, and you're a show-off. Accept too many dances at a ball, and you're bold. Accept too few, and you're haughty. It's said that somewhere, in the heart of every village, there is a master ledger, invisible but real, where every social misstep is recorded in invisible ink and discussed at length by people who don't like to talk. True scandal, real, honest-to-goodness reputation-ruining scandal, is rare, but that's what makes it so dangerous. An innocent walk in the park with the wrong chaperone, a laugh that's just a bit too loud at the wrong dinner, or, heaven forbid, a misaddressed letter, and you become the stuff of legend. Your descendants will hear the story, always with a new embellishment. She wore red, you know, and in broad daylight. He was seen without gloves in October. The scandal sheet's memory is long, and its appetite is endless. But there is comfort, too, in this system of gentle sabotage and subtle flattery. Everyone is implicated. Everyone has secrets. And in the end, forgiveness is possible, provided enough time, distance, or a sufficiently juicy new story comes along. Until then, you mind your manners, watch your words, and polish your reputation like silver, carefully, frequently, and with an eye out for fingerprints. Congratulations, you have survived another day unscathed by the scandal sheet. Just don't ask what's on tomorrow's front page. Going out of town? Hope you packed the 800-page etiquette manual. There are rules for packing, tipping, arriving, departing, and even for how loudly you sigh at bad hotel pillows. Don't even think about complaining out loud. Travel in 1905 is a heroic endeavor, not so much a journey as a series of social puzzles. Your preparations begin days in advance. First, assemble your wardrobe for every imaginable occasion. Travel suit, wool, sober. Visiting dress, floral, hopeful. Mourning ensemble, just in case, and a hat for every hour between sunrise and tea. Luggage is not something you toss in the back seat of a car. It's a collection of trunks and valises so numerous they require their own ticket and possibly a small staff. Heaven help the woman whose gloves are crushed in transit. Some families still speak in hushed tones of the great ribbon wrinkle of 99. Once you've packed, it's time to consult the rules for train travel. Always arrive at the station 20 minutes early. Any sooner, and you're nervous. Any later, and you're vulgar. Tip the porter just enough that he remembers your name, but not so much that he mistakes you for royalty. As you ascend into the carriage, accept assistance with the dignified air of a person who has never in her life tripped over a suitcase. Your seat must be chosen with care, not too close to the lavatory, not too far from the window, and, above all, never directly across from a man reading a newspaper with opinions. Once aboard, the etiquette intensifies. Reading material should be wholesome. Travel guides, moral tales, perhaps a collection of uplifting sermons. Romance novels are concealed behind copies of the Ladies' Home Journal, lest someone glimpse a scandalous plot twist. Conversation with fellow passengers is limited to the weather, train punctuality, or the relative merits of travel biscuits. Should you feel faint from the excitement, retire behind your veil and sigh as quietly as possible. Hotels are a fresh minefield. The grander the hotel, the more Byzantine the rules. You must register at the desk, sign the guest book, with legible but not showy handwriting, and never demand a specific room. Such demands mark you as difficult. A bellboy will whisk away your luggage at a pace that suggests he has trained for this moment his entire life. Be sure to tip, but discreetly. Too generous, and you're suspected of new money. Too stingy, and your towels will be forever damp. Inside your room, the adventure continues. Should you find a lump in the mattress, you may request another, but only once, and always with a smile so pained it's nearly angelic. Never, ever complain about the temperature, the lighting, or the mysterious floral scent wafting from the drapes. Should you encounter a rodent, simply ask for additional housekeeping and leave the rest to fate. Dining in the hotel's restaurant? The same rules as at home, plus a few for public consumption. Do not speak of travel misfortunes. Never point out a fly in your soup, and always pretend to be delighted by the view, even if it overlooks the stables. On departure, leave your room immaculate, as if you'd never spent the night. Thank every member of staff, regardless of whether you remember their name or their role. And as you exit, do so with the quiet dignity of someone who never once sighed audibly about the pillows, the trains, or the journey itself. Because in 1905, travel isn't about seeing the world, it's about surviving it. One awkward tip and silent complaint at a time. For every rule in the book, there are 3 more nobody will tell you about. The real skill is not perfection, but knowing how to recover from an etiquette disaster with humor, humility, and just a hint of plausible deniability. You enter the world of 1905 etiquette, believing that, with a bit of study and enough practice curtsies, you'll be able to glide through life like a duck across a mill pond. But here's the secret nobody shares. The official rules are just the warm-up act. The real game is played in the shadowy corners of the social dance, where success depends not on avoiding mistakes, but on recovering from them with enough style to make people question whether it was a mistake at all. Suppose you walk into a parlor, trip on the edge of a rug, and send a small cascade of calling cards fluttering like panicked butterflies. The experienced practitioner does not freeze, blush, or apologize herself into the floorboards. Instead, she recovers with a laugh and a line. "How fortunate! I was just about to distribute these anyway." A gentle, self-mocking smile, a quick reset, and suddenly your tumble is rebranded as a whimsical flourish. Or imagine a dinner party where, against all odds, you use the fish knife on the salad. Eyes glance over, eyebrows arch. In this moment, you do not explain or panic or grab the correct utensil in a flurry of guilt. No. You maintain composure, finish the bite, and remark with a wink. I've always been a believer in culinary innovation. The unspoken rule: admit nothing, deflect gently, and, if needed, invent a charming family tradition on the spot. When it comes to conversation, the unwritten rules multiply. Did you just call someone's child by the wrong name? Don't backpedal. Just claim you were using their family nickname, which you read in a Victorian novel. If a joke falls flat, simply laugh at yourself and change the subject to something safer. Preferably the weather or Mrs. Abernathy's roses, which are always blooming or failing depending on the audience. Sometimes, the rule is to break the rules with care. Arrive fashionably late to a tea, and if questioned, apologize with such heartfelt regret that your hostess feels lucky you came at all. If you're caught yawning during a poetry reading, blame it on the late hour, your enthusiasm for the event, or, best of all, a touch of the vapors. In 1905, the vapors are the universal get-out-of-jail-free card. Good for everything from awkward silences to accidental snoring in the second pew. For the truly advanced, plausible deniability is your best friend. Did you spill tea on the tablecloth? Marvel at the unique new pattern and promise to recommend the laundress to all your friends. If you forget someone's birthday, arrive the next day with a gift and claim you wish to extend the celebrations. The goal is not to convince everyone you're perfect, but to ensure your imperfections become tomorrow's favorite anecdote, not next week's scandal. In the end, what matters is not how often you trip over a social rule, but how elegantly you pick yourself up. The unwritten laws of etiquette are less about punishment, more about keeping everyone's dignity intact. Even when chaos reigns, you apologize when it's necessary, laugh at yourself often, and never ever let them see you sweat. Because the true champions of etiquette aren't the ones who follow every rule, they're the ones who make a misstep look like a new dance. And in the world of 1905, that's the most enviable skill of all. Bathing isn't just about hygiene. It's a full-blown production with an audience of nosy aunts and judgmental neighbors. The right day of the week, the right scented soap, and a tub placed exactly out of sight from the windows. Miss a step, and you'll be whispered about until the next century. Heaven help you if someone spots your hair dripping before noon. In 1905, bathing is less a private necessity and more a semi-public performance. It all begins with scheduling. You don't simply bathe when you feel like it. No, there is an approved bathing day, perhaps Wednesday or Saturday, depending on family tradition and the prevailing humidity. Too frequent, and you're considered wasteful, vain, or suffering from a mysterious European influence. Not frequent enough, and you'll be judged the instant you pass by Mrs. Abernathy's hydrangeas. When your designated day arrives, you gather your supplies. Soap, scented with lavender for the genteel, pine for the practical. A fresh towel, monogram optional but encouraged. And a robe suitable for dashing between rooms in case of unexpected guests or runaway siblings. Water must be drawn and heated by hand, by kettle, or by bribing a younger brother. The bath itself is usually a porcelain tub in a drafty room, located just far enough from the fireplace to guarantee mild suffering. Discretion is everything. You must ensure the shades are drawn, the door firmly bolted, and any creaking floorboards avoided. This is not only to protect your modesty, but to maintain the illusion that you never sweat, let alone require a thorough scrubbing. Should anyone approach, you perfect your just enjoying the quiet voice, even as you desperately towel off behind a screen. Soap selection is its own ordeal. The wrong scent implies pretension. The right one whispers of good breeding and quiet wealth. If your soap is too fragrant, you may be accused of putting on airs. Too plain, and people might suspect you are economizing, which is nearly as scandalous as poor hygiene itself. There is an unspoken consensus that rose is the scent of choice for the upwardly mobile, while unscented is reserved for widows and children recovering from chickenpox. The act of bathing must be swift yet thorough, enough to remove the dust of daily decorum, not so long as to suggest you enjoy the sensation. Singing in the bath is forbidden, unless you wish your voice to be the next topic of church gossip. And soaking for pleasure is a secret best kept from the matriarchs. The bathwater, of course, must be managed with military precision. Spilled water means potential mold, and mold means inquiries from the Women's Temperance Society. Once the ordeal is complete, the real danger begins, drying off without detection. Hair, especially, must be managed in secrecy. Wet hair at breakfast is proof of moral failing. The proper method involves a turban of towels, a fire lit at precisely the right moment, and, ideally, the assistance of a trusted sibling sworn to silence. Towels and soap return to their places. You emerge from your ablutions with cheeks flushed, but not suspiciously so. If anyone comments on your freshness, you deny. Oh, I merely splashed my face, you say, even if you smell like a field of violets. Should the neighbors notice a window fogged with steam, you hope against hope they attribute it to tea kettles or ghostly activity. Bathing, in this era, is less about feeling clean and more about remaining above suspicion. You're not just fighting grime. You're navigating a sea of social peril, armed only with a bar of soap and nerves of steel. Congratulations. You have survived another week's ritual, and your place in polite society is safe, at least until next Wednesday. A handkerchief in 1905 is more than a scrap of fabric. It's your primary mode of communication. Drop it once to signal interest, twice for distress, 3 times, and you're basically announcing a royal engagement. Each flick, fold, or flutter sends messages clearer than any text. Just don't mix up the signals, or you might accidentally propose to the milkman. For the American woman of the era, the handkerchief is a Swiss army knife of social tools, with a code so nuanced that even Morse would need a refresher course. Every lady's reticule contains a minimum of 3. 1 for show, 1 for sneezes, and 1 just in case the first 2 encounter an etiquette emergency. They are monogrammed, meticulously starched, and traded among friends as if they carry the weight of small family fortunes. At a ball, the handkerchief is the original status update. Folded neatly in the palm, it's a signal that you're attentive, polite, and, crucially, not about to faint from hunger or boredom. Flick it open briskly, and you signal excitement, or perhaps an alarming draft nearby. A slow, deliberate wave of the handkerchief is a plea for rescue from an insufferable partner, especially if combined with a meaningful look in your chaperone's direction. If the fan is the weapon of choice for fending off unwanted advances, the handkerchief is the subtle ally, capable of delivering a covert. Save me to any sympathetic onlooker. Of course, there are strict rules for when and how to use your linen language. Never wave your handkerchief too vigorously. No one likes a drama queen unless you're auditioning for the next family scandal. A gentle dab at the eyes signals delicate emotion, acceptable, while full-on nose-blowing, even with the prettiest lace, is considered a declaration of social defeat. Should you sneeze, the correct procedure is to catch it as quietly as possible and then hide the evidence in your sleeve like an amateur magician. For courtship, the handkerchief is a veritable telegraph system. Dropping it at the feet of a gentleman, accidentally on purpose, of course, is the opening move of romantic chess. If he retrieves it and returns it with a bow, the conversation may commence, provided your chaperone is within 10 feet, ready to interpret each stitch and knot for secret proposals or, heaven forbid, political opinions. But beware. Drop your handkerchief at the wrong moment, and you might find yourself the focus of town gossip for a week, or worse, promised to a man who can't tell cambric from cheesecloth. For more urgent messages, repetition is key. 1 drop is a gentle nudge, 2 is a call for help, 3, and everyone in the room prepares for either an elopement or a fainting spell. Should a rival lady catch your pattern and copy it, you must respond with a new variation, perhaps a tiny knot at the corner for "We need to talk," or a discreet dab at your lips for "Rescue me from this conversation about taxidermy." But the handkerchief is not only for the delicate moments of romance and distress. It is equally vital in the art of gossip. When shocking news is whispered, you may cover your mouth with the handkerchief to demonstrate just how scandalized you are. Even if you're secretly delighted, if someone else drops theirs in horror, you nod solemnly, acknowledging the gravity of what has just been revealed. In the world of 1905, words are often dangerous, but a well-timed gesture with a square of linen is perfectly safe and often far more effective. So you fold, flick, and flutter your handkerchief, always with practiced ambiguity, always ready to communicate or conceal, depending on which is most appropriate. And if you ever mix up your signals, simply smile sweetly, tuck the offending handkerchief away, and let everyone wonder what secret you just started or ended with nothing more than a bit of finely embroidered linen. A picnic sounds like freedom until you realize the etiquette follows you into the wild. There's a proper way to unfold a blanket, arrange a basket, and politely shoo away ants without losing your composure. Eating a sandwich with your hands? Scandalous. Laughing too loudly? Even the squirrels will judge you. Preparing for a 1905 picnic is a military campaign disguised as leisure. The blanket, for instance, is not just a blanket, but a statement of taste and ancestry, ideally wool, plaid, and inherited from someone important. It must be shaken out with a dignified flick and spread so smoothly over the grass that not a single ripple betrays the chaos of your domestic life. Heaven help the soul who attempts to picnic with a bedspread, or worse, a newspaper, the sort of faux pas that inspires entire chapters in etiquette manuals. The picnic basket is packed with the precision of a railway timetable. Glassware, not tin cups, porcelain plates, not anything with picnic set in the name. Each sandwich is cut into triangles, crusts banished, fillings selected for their ability to endure the journey without seeping into the linen. Jam jars are wrapped in separate napkins. Forks and knives must be included, because the idea of eating chicken or fruit with your hands is enough to bring on the vapors. Salt cellars, tiny butter knives, and even a collapsible pepper mill may make appearances. This is outdoor dining, not survivalism. Once you've found the perfect spot, half shade, half sun, no risk of dampness, at least one view of a babbling brook, you must seat yourself with careful grace. No flopping, sprawling, or stretching out like a character from a scandalous French painting. Knees together, back straight. You perch on the edge of the blanket as if waiting for a formal invitation to relax. Ants are the only thing permitted to move quickly. When they arrive, and they will, you dispatch them with delicate flicks or the strategic placement of crumbs far from the main encampment. No shrieking, no flapping of napkins, and certainly no jumping up and down. Such undignified displays are reserved for children and unchaperoned artists. Eating, meanwhile, is a pageant of restraint. You do not simply bite into a sandwich. You break it into bite-sized morsels, eaten with gloved fingers or, for the truly committed, with a fork. If you must sip lemonade, do so in measured draughts, not hearty gulps. Conversation is sprinkled with gentle laughter, never the raucous kind that attracts the attention of nearby birds or, worse, other picnickers. If you drop a scone, you do not pounce. You let it be, a noble sacrifice to nature. Games and amusements are encouraged, but only those approved by the Ladies' Gazette. Croquet is safe, provided no one swings a mallet with visible enthusiasm. Reading poetry aloud is charming. Spontaneous races, tree climbing, and anything involving rolling down hills are right out. Should a hat fly off in the wind, you chase it in a dignified zigzag, never at full speed. Appear as if you're enjoying a brisk constitutional, not rescuing your only good millinery. And when the meal is over, the cleanup begins. Plates stacked, crumbs shaken away from the main blanket, and any scraps packed up for the return journey. The goal is to leave the landscape untouched and your dignity unruffled, even if the ants won this round. Before you rise, you scan the horizon for witnesses, smooth your skirt, and rehearse the story of your tranquil, untroubled afternoon. Because in 1905, a picnic isn't a break from etiquette. It's etiquette in exile, watching to see if you'll slip. You survived, with your composure, your gloves, and your place in society intact. Even if, just this once, the squirrels saw you laugh. You might be the lady of the house, but every interaction with staff is a minefield of rules. Greet them just enough, but not too much. Never thank them excessively, and certainly never use their first names at dinner. There's a social script for every request, and improvising means you'll become the next cautionary tale at bridge club. The Edwardian household runs on silent, well-oiled machinery, a system where everyone knows their place and nobody admits to noticing the actual work being done. The goal is efficiency without visible effort, kindness without familiarity, and gratitude without, well, actual emotional connection. Each morning, you descend to breakfast, nod to the maid who opened the curtains, and pretend you don't see her at all when she's dusting the piano just 12 inches from your nose. After all, acknowledging a servant mid-task is like making eye contact with a magician halfway through a trick. Simply not done. When issuing instructions, your tone is brisk but polite. The fire needs tending, thank you. Never. Would you please be so kind? Too familiar. And never, ever, could you pop round with the tea? Social suicide. Requests must be phrased as inevitabilities, not suggestions. Should you need a letter posted, you lay it in the hall tray with a note that simply reads, "To be sent." Extra words are a sign of weakness. Next thing you know, you'll be gossiping with the housekeeper and hosting union meetings in the pantry. Gratitude is delicate territory. A curt thank you suffices for daily miracles like a perfectly ironed tablecloth or a fresh pot of tea. Anything more elaborate risks being mistaken for an apology, which throws the entire social balance into chaos. A thank you note? Unthinkable. The closest you come is the annual Christmas bonus, accompanied by a card signed only with your surname. As if you are bestowing a knighthood. Never use a servant's first name during formal hours, or worse, in front of guests. At dinner, Mary becomes the parlor maid. James is the footman, and you are madam, not the woman who shrieks at spiders. To blur these lines is to court whispers from both the staff and the neighbours. No one likes a lady who's too chummy with the help. If you must scold, do it in private and with an air of heavy disappointment, as if you're sentencing them to a week of grey porridge rather than correcting a misplaced fork. For major events, dinner parties, teas, and the occasional unannounced visit from a bishop, the choreography becomes even more elaborate. Servants move like ghosts, setting tables, refilling cups, and collecting crumbs in a dance invisible to guests. Your job is to pretend the sugar bowl simply refills itself and that fresh flowers have always been there. Should a tray be dropped, you never flinch. You simply raise an eyebrow at your fellow diners, as if to say, some people simply don't appreciate a good linoleum floor. If, on rare occasion, you wish to reward exceptional service, you may leave a shilling discreetly on a tray, or praise the butler's wine selection to the master of the house. Even then, keep it understated. No one wants to seem emotional, let alone American. When all is said and done, the servants retreat, you resume your spot in the parlor, and life continues, the machinery humming quietly in the background. And if you've played your part correctly, you'll enjoy a reputation for kindness and efficiency, without ever being remembered for trying too hard. Because in 1905, good help is hard to find. But too much friendliness is even harder to forgive. So you tread the line, tiptoe the rules, and keep your bridge club stories scandal-free. At least until someone forgets and thanks the cook by name. Someone in the family passes, and suddenly you're plunged into a swirling sea of black veils and strict social codes. There's a timetable for tears, an approved width for mourning ribbons, and a mathematical formula for how long to avoid laughter. Mourning well is an etiquette marathon, misstep, and the neighbours will be more shocked than you are. In 1905, grief is not a private matter. It's a public duty, performed with the solemnity of a royal procession and the competitive spirit of a country fair. The first step is the wardrobe overhaul. Everything bright and cheerful is swept into storage, replaced with dresses, gloves, hats, and handkerchiefs in 50 shades of black. If you must accessorize, it must be with jet beads, dull brooches, or the occasional discreet touch of lilac for half mourning, the emotional equivalent of easing off the gas pedal at a stop sign. For women, mourning attire is a full-time commitment. There are rules for every relationship. A full year of deep mourning for a parent, 6 months for a sibling, and a complicated pie chart-worthy timetable for more distant relations. Woe to the woman who moves too quickly into muted greys. She'll find herself shunned at church and pitied at tea. A widow faces the strictest requirements. No lace, no patterns, and certainly no dancing until the last shred of crepe has been packed away. And it isn't just clothing. Social life enters a kind of suspended animation. Invitations to balls, teas, and picnics are politely declined with handwritten notes on blackboarded stationery, naturally. If you're seen at the theatre before your allotted time is up, be prepared for gasps, letters of concern, and at least one strongly worded sermon. You must be subdued at church, soft-spoken at home, and, above all, impenetrable to humour. An untimely giggle in mourning attire is considered both a sin and an invitation for your relatives to remind you, in perpetuity, of that time at Cousin Eleanor's wake. Public weeping is permitted, but only with restraint. A single handkerchief dabbed at the corner of the eye, acceptable. Full-on sobbing, questionable. Collapsing entirely, commendable, provided it's done with grace and within reach of a fainting couch. In the privacy of your own room, however, tears are optional, and many a mourner has been caught sneaking a smile at an old love letter or the world's least dignified family portrait. Flowers are everywhere. Lilies for purity, violets for loyalty, and just enough evergreens to remind everyone of the eternal weight of the occasion. Cards arrive daily, each bearing the same pre-printed sympathies. The real meaning is found in the subtext. A particularly long note means genuine sorrow. A brief one means, "We're counting the days until you're back at Bridge Club." Through it all, the ever-present eyes of the neighborhood remain alert. Did you wear grey too soon? Did you sit in the wrong pew? Did you dare to smile at the grocer while he weighed your onions? Any lapse becomes a story, retold with relish at every gathering. And yet, behind the gossip and the rules, there's a certain solidarity. Everyone has lost someone. Everyone has stumbled through the rituals. And everyone, eventually, comes out the other side. When mourning finally ends, it's marked by a cautious return to color. A lavender sash here, a cream collar there. You step into the world a little lighter, your closet a little emptier, and your reputation, if you followed the formula, untarnished. Because in 1905, mourning is as much about living as about loss. It's a test of endurance, dignity, and, above all, memory, yours and everyone else's. As the last echoes of lace gloves, dancing cards, and etiquette advice fade into the soft hum of your fan, let's pause for a sleepy moment of reflection. Tonight, you've survived the gauntlet of 1900s American womanhood. A day where simply sipping tea could spark a scandal, and sitting unchaperoned on a park bench was a high-risk maneuver. You endured a blizzard of social rules so complex, it would make modern tax forms look merciful. You navigated breakfast minefields, decoded handkerchief hieroglyphics, and somehow managed to avoid a reputation-shattering sneeze in public. You met every challenge with a straight spine, a tight corset, and enough composure to win a medal in the Olympic Games of Manners. You discovered that sometimes the greatest danger isn't disease, disaster, or even bears. It's the terror of using the wrong spoon at dinner, or laughing at the wrong joke in the parlor. Through it all, you've earned your honorary diploma in etiquette survival. No fainting couch required, but before you drift off, take a moment to feel grateful for the small, ridiculous mercies of the modern world. As you tuck yourself into a soft bed with no mandatory corset, no parade of hats, and no risk of being banished for dropping your sandwich at a picnic, maybe send a quiet thank you to the generations who came before. Those who endured days defined by strict codes, constant supervision, and the ongoing threat of public mortifications so you could one day wear pajamas to the grocery store. Because history, in all its absurdity and strictness, proves one thing. People are resilient, stubborn, and occasionally gloriously ridiculous. The rules change, the fashions fade, but our will to muddle through, awkwardly, hilariously, and together, remains the same. So tonight, let the day's worries fall away like a discarded petticoat. You've outlasted the etiquette gauntlet of the past, and now you've earned a peaceful, rule-free sleep. Sweet dreams, and may tomorrow greet you with fewer rules, a softer pillow, and not a single fainting couch in sight. Good night.